You won't believe what happened to me. One moment, I was running the most exclusive fashion brand in London, and the next, I was begging for a job in my own company. And the man sitting in my chair? The janitor I once humiliated. Watch till the end to see how karma turned my life upside down. And if you love gripping stories of betrayal and redemption, hit that subscribe button now. I was Isla Kensington, CEO of Kensington Luxe. People feared me, envied me. And I loved it. Every morning, I walked into my office like I owned the world, because, well, I did. My designers, assistants, even my top executives, all scrambled to impress me. Their careers depended on my approval. And I made sure they never forgot it. Miss Kensington, your 10 a.m. meeting is ready, my assistant whispered nervously as I glanced at the clock. 10:01 a.m. Late. Unacceptable. I shot her a look, and she flinched. I loved that feeling, power. I stepped into my office, not even noticing the janitor mopping the floor near the entrance. He was always there, pushing his cart, invisible to me. His name was Jamal, I think. But honestly, I never cared enough to be sure. Good morning, Miss Kensington, he said politely. I didn't respond. Why would I? He was just a janitor. But then, it happened. The moment that changed everything. I was walking through the hallway, focused on an important call, when Jamal bumped into me. Hot coffee spilled down my leg, ruining my designer heels. I gasped, my face burning with rage. You idiot. I shrieked. The entire office went silent. Everyone stared as I wiped the coffee off my dress in disgust. Jamal looked mortified. I'm so sorry, Miss Kensington, I didn't see, of course, you didn't see. That's why you'll always be a nobody. I snapped. The humiliation in his eyes was satisfying. He muttered another apology and quickly grabbed a cloth to clean up. Pathetic. That night, I attended an exclusive gala, drowning in champagne and compliments. But amidst the flashing cameras and polite smiles, an investor pulled me aside. Isla, your company's financials are shaky. Be careful. I laughed, brushing it off. Kensington Luxe would never fall. Or so I thought. I woke up to chaos. My phone buzzed non-stop, messages, missed calls, news alerts. The headlines were everywhere. Kensington Luxe faces financial crisis, on the brink of collapse? Investors pull out, is this the end of London's elite fashion house? My heart pounded. This had to be a mistake. I rushed into the office, expecting my team to have a solution. Instead, I walked into whispers, nervous glances, and panicked employees. The air was thick with uncertainty. I stormed into my CFO's office. Fix this, I demanded, slamming the newspaper onto his desk. He sighed, rubbing his temples. Isla, we've run the numbers a dozen times. We're in too deep. The company is drowning in debt. The investors are pulling out. No, I snapped, shaking my head. We just need time. Time won't change the fact that we can't pay our suppliers, our rent, or even our employees, he said flatly. Isla, Kensington Luxe is beyond saving. I felt sick. My perfect empire, my legacy, was slipping through my fingers. This couldn't be happening. In desperation, I did what I had to. I cut costs mercilessly. I called a meeting. A room full of frightened employees stared at me, waiting. Kensington Luxe is restructuring, I announced coldly. Effective immediately, we are reducing staff by 40%. Gasps filled the room. Some started crying. Others looked at me with pure hatred. I didn't care. I couldn't afford to. Survival came first. One by one, security escorted employees out, carrying boxes filled with their careers. Some of them had been with me since the beginning. But there was no room for loyalty anymore. As I walked back to my office, I saw Jamal standing quietly in the hallway, watching everything. For the first time, I noticed him. Really noticed him. His gaze wasn't filled with fear like the others. It was something else. A quiet understanding. I ignored it. He was just a janitor. What did he know about survival? That evening, I sat in my penthouse, surrounded by empty wine bottles and eviction notices. I stared at the eviction letter in my trembling hands. It wasn't just my company. My entire life was crumbling. How had this happened? I was Isla Kensington. I was untouchable. A notification popped up on my phone. Breaking news. My blood ran cold as I read the headline. Hostile takeover, Kensington Lux has been bought out. My breath caught in my throat. Someone had taken my company. My empire. My name. And I had no idea who it was. I stormed through the glass doors of Kensington Lux, my heels clicking furiously against the marble floor. Employees froze as I passed, whispering among themselves. I didn't care. Who bought my company? I barked at my assistant, or rather, my former assistant. She hesitated, looking at me with something that almost resembled pity. Isla, I think you should. I didn't wait for her to finish. I pushed open the doors to my office, ready to confront whoever dared steal my empire. And then I froze. Sitting in my chair, legs crossed, wearing a tailored navy blue suit, was Jamal. Jamal. The janitor. He leaned back, smirking. Took you long enough. I couldn't move. This was a joke. A sick joke. You're in my chair, I spat, gripping the edge of the desk. No, he corrected, adjusting his cufflinks. I'm in my chair. The room spun. How? I looked at him, really looked at him. Gone were the faded uniform and cheap trainers. He looked polished, powerful, like he belonged there. This isn't possible, I whispered, shaking my head. You're just a janitor. Jamal chuckled. A slow, knowing laugh that sent shivers down my spine. Was a janitor, he corrected. But unlike you, Isla, I treated people with respect. And while you spent years stepping on others, I was paying attention. I swallowed hard. My hands trembled. Flashbacks flashed through my mind like daggers. Jamal, pushing a mop, listening quietly. Jamal, unnoticed in the background during board meetings. Jamal, watching me belittle employees, fire staff, flaunt my wealth. I had never seen him as anything more than an invisible man. I opened my mouth to argue, but he raised a hand. Let me help you connect the dots, he said, leaning forward. I started investing years ago. Small at first, stocks, property, silent partnerships. He smiled. And then, one day, I set my sights on something bigger. I felt sick. When your company started crumbling, he continued, I saw an opportunity. I waited. Watched. And when the moment was right, I made my move. It hit me like a truck. Jamal had been there, every step of my downfall. Watching me drown while he quietly took everything. You can't do this, I whispered, gripping the edge of the desk. He tilted his head, amused. I already did. The weight of his words crashed over me. This wasn't just a loss. This was humiliation. I had built an empire. And now, my janitor owned it. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't happening. It couldn't be happening. I gripped the edge of the desk, my pulse hammering in my ears. Jamal, please, I whispered, forcing the words out. You don't understand how much this company means to me. He raised an eyebrow. Oh, I understand perfectly. I swallowed hard. Then let me stay. I can help. I built this company from nothing. Jamal leaned back in my chair, his chair now, and studied me like I was an insect beneath his shoe. The same way I had once looked at him. Help? He smirked. Now you want to help? My hands clenched into fists. You're punishing me. Is that it? Revenge? He laughed softly. No, Isla. Revenge would be throwing you out on the street. But I have something better in mind. He slid a folder across the desk. I hesitated before picking it up. My stomach twisted as I read the words on the page. Junior staff assignment, cleaning department. I looked up, horrified. You want me to be a janitor? Jamal grinned. You always said no job was beneath anyone, didn't you? I felt my pride crack. This was his game. He wanted to watch me squirm, to make me feel what he once had. But I had no other option. With a deep breath and a burning humiliation, I signed the paper. The first day was hell. I stood in the break room, wearing a janitor's uniform, feeling every single stare from the employees who used to cower in my presence. I heard the whispers, the stifled laughs. Isla Kensington? A cleaner? I ignored them and picked up the mop. My hands trembled. I had never done anything like this in my life. I spilled water everywhere. I nearly broke the vacuum. I was pathetic. And Jamal? He barely acknowledged me. But I saw him, really saw him for the first time. I watched how he treated the staff. He listened. He cared. He remembered people's names. He asked about their families. He was everything I never was. One night, exhausted and aching, I wandered into the office to finish cleaning. That's when I saw him. Jamal, sitting alone at his desk, signing checks. But they weren't for him. I crept closer and saw the names. The same employees I had fired. He was sending them money, helping them rebuild their lives. Why? Something inside me cracked. For the first time in my life, I saw what real leadership looked like. And for the first time, I hated who I used to be. I once thought power meant control. That respect was something you demanded, not earned. I was wrong. Jamal had built something stronger than an empire. He built loyalty. And I had destroyed mine. For weeks, I worked tirelessly, not because I had to, but because I wanted to prove I was more than the monster I used to be. I showed up early, stayed late. I helped the new hires, apologized to those I had wronged. And for the first time, I felt something I had never known before, humility. Then, one afternoon, Jamal called me into his office. My heart pounded as I stepped inside. The same office that used to be mine. I had cleaned this very floor yesterday. Jamal sat behind the desk, unreadable. His fingers tapped against a crisp white envelope. "You've changed, Isla," he said. I exhaled in relief. Finally. He saw it. He knew. "Thank you," I whispered. But then, he slid the envelope toward me. My stomach twisted as I opened it. Termination notice. I froze. "Jamal, what is this?" "You're fired, Isla." His voice was calm, final. I felt my knees weaken. No. No, you can't. You said I've changed. You have, he admitted. But it's too late. Tears burned in my eyes. "Please, Jamal. I need this job." He studied me, his expression unreadable. Then, softly, he said, "I needed respect once. You didn't care then." I couldn't breathe. My own words, the ones I had thrown at him years ago, now shattered me. I wanted to scream, to beg, but deep down, I knew, this was justice. I stood there, gripping the letter, my world crumbling for the second time. "Goodbye, Isla," Jamal said. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Without another word, I turned and walked away. As I stepped out of the building, my legacy, now just a memory, I finally understood. Power isn't about stepping on others. Respect isn't demanded, it's earned. And kindness? Kindness is the one thing that truly lasts. What do you think? Was Jamal right to fire Isla? Comment below. Subscribe for more shocking confessions.